I'm Gemma and this is Non-Fic Books, and today I have my April wrap-up. And I'm going to have quite a few blank or different backgrounds over the next few weeks, probably next couple of months, because we're doing some quite major house renovation and all of my books and most of our house has been packed away. So you'll have a lot of blank walls or different places because we'll be between here and my mother-in-law's. So fingers crossed I'll still manage to get the videos up, but they might not look quite so nice as they won't have any of the books behind. But anyway, the first book I read in April was actually started on St George's Day, and if you know when that is, that's really quite late in the month because I had a massive reading slump and just couldn't really read most of the month. So I've actually read 5 books, and that's all in the last sort of week or so of the month because I just don't know what happened at the beginning. Totally not inspired. I picked this up on St George's Day, and that is Roy Strong's Visions of England, or Why We Still Dream of a Place in the Country. And I'm going to just read the sort of final paragraph or so, because if you hear about sort of English identity, a lot of people sort of think warning, warning, racism, sort of skinheads, not good sort of vibes. So I'll just sort of read what his idea of what he's trying to do here. And that's: this is not a grand political vision, and it carries no nationalist fervour, but one could argue that it is quietly political. It speaks of humanity at peace, mutual respect and obligation, and life in harmony with the natural world. In its passion for the environment, it is a vision that is today more topical than ever. More important still, it is democratic and inclusive. I believe that it can be embraced and enjoyed by anyone living in this country. The purpose of this book has been to remind readers of what generations of English people have taken for granted as the ingredients of their national identity. The decision about which of those icons and traditions to reclaim, reform and enhance is theirs. And this was written by Roy Strong, who has been hugely involved in the art scene, especially in London, and I believe headed the National Gallery, I think it was, for quite a while. He's obviously obsessed with the Elizabethan era, and a lot of his argument comes from the sort of developments and changes that happened then, creating sort of the English identity as we sort of know it now. This was written in 2011 and is sort of set to a background of the start of sort of pushing for the Scottish independence referendum, and the sort of, as it's quite possible over the next few years of the Union, developing more and more sort of splits and gaps between it. What does it mean to be English? And that's what he is looking at. And I thought that was a really enjoyable sort of, it's really just a long essay, quite an opinion piece, but really well written and very enjoyable. The next one, really quick little book by John Harrison, Lowcost Living, and this is about living sustainably and thinking about your purchases, and it's a really enjoyable little book. It's a good starter if you've never read anything about living sustainably, but there's no sort of big new ideas or anything if you don't. So if you've already sort of done any reading into it, this won't be for you, but otherwise a good little starter guide. The next one was fabulous and is one of the best books I've read this year so far, and I've reviewed it before, so I will put a link down below, and that is In Her Element, Women in the Landscape, an Anthology, edited by Jane MacNamee. This is beautiful. This took me months to read because it was so beautiful, because I wanted a gap between all of the essays, because I didn't really feel reading them one after the other gave them enough justice. I wanted to think and mull and really sort of examine them, and overall, fabulous. As I said, more details, click the link down below and I have a full review. The next one I'm not going to talk about in too much detail because it will be appearing in Austen August, and that is Susannah Fullerton's Happily Ever After, celebrating Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. This has also been published, just called something like Celebrating Jane Austen, 200 Years of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, with a sort of turquoisey cover with a cutout of a peacock on it, but it is the same book, it's just the English or the American version. This is lovely. It's a really sort of fun guide if you're particularly interested in Pride and Prejudice. Even if you're a massive Janeite, I think this will still be a fun, enjoyable read, but you can read this if you're just a fan of Pride and Prejudice rather than a really geeky Janeite like myself. Might be, maybe. And then the last book was one that I mentioned in my 16 books I'd like to read in 2016, and it's Brian Dolan's Ladies of the Grand Tour. this is fabulous. I really enjoyed this book. It is looking at, not too surprisingly, ladies who went on the Grand Tour. Basically women travellers in the 18th century moving through just into the start of the 19th century as it became more common, and looking at really the sort of key women who really started this off and eventually took it to starting travel writing from a female perspective, which hadn't really been done before. Ladies wrote letters home, obviously, and they were circulated between a group of friends, but them being published was quite rare, and it's throughout the 18th century that this becomes a more common thing. And this is a fantastic book if you're interested in the history of women travelling, if you're interested in the history of women, if you're interested in the Grand Tour, definitely have a look. I think this brings a new perspective to it. And if you're interested in sort of the 18th century at all, again, I think this is a fabulous book. So those are the 5 books that I read at the end of April, and fingers crossed, May is going to be a slightly better month, and I can get more than 1 week's reading in. If you've got any questions, comments, or if you've read any of them, leave what you think down below. And if you've got any suggestions based on particularly the 2 at the end that I enjoyed so much, please again leave them down below, and hopefully I'll see you in a video soon. Bye!